The lowercase letters are a combination, almost all of them are a combination of the basic strokes. So what I'm going to be doing is walking you through each of these letters. You'll notice there's some little direction arrows to kind of show you which direction you're going to draw these that can kind of help. And you can also trace the example, and then there's some space to try drawing some on your own. So the first letter, one thing I will mention is that this alphabet set is one that I have made, and it's a little bit stylized. So I'll show you when we come to those points, like on the letter B, and kind of walk you through those, but they are a bit stylized. So the first letter is going to be the letter A. So first we're going to be starting with an O form. So we'll start at 2 o'clock. And we have our O form first, and then we have our underturn. And not all the examples end here at the waistline, but it's such a good practice to do that. And so try when you're practicing, just end all the way up there. Have it finish at that waistline. That's going to help us when we start connecting our letters together. So that's the letter A. Next is the letter B. And one thing I wanted to show you with this really quick, we learned the O form that we start here and we work our way this way. But you can also do a reverse O form where you're starting on this side and you're moving up, so it's light pressure, heavy pressure, and then connect. So you're moving this way and you're starting on the bottom. And this reverse O form is actually what's used on the letter B as well as P and K. So one more little note here, we learned how to do the basic strokes or the basic upstroke like this, right? But an easy way to stylize it is just to flip the directions it's going. You're still moving up in a thin line, but you're just reflecting the way the curve goes. So that's what's going on with this B and H and a few of the other letters here in this stylized alphabet. So for this B, I'm going to start down here and do that stylized upstroke. I'm going to go into an ascending loop, and then that reversed O form. And then this is a stylized upstroke, and we can kind of keep that all together in one motion. So stylized upstroke, ascending loop, reverse O form, and stylized upstroke. The difference with this one to this one is there's just more space in between here. And neither is right or wrong. It's a stylistic thing where you could bring it like that. So it just gives it kind of a different and fun look. Next is the letter C. This one we're starting as if we're drawing the O form at the 2 o'clock position, and we move up, and then we're coming down, but instead of connecting it, we kick the bottom out to the right. So just like an O form, but we're not connecting it. And just practice getting the end of that C all the way up to the waistline. Next is the letter D. This one's going to be an O form again. And a downstroke with an underturn. So O form, downstroke, and underturn. And this one was better. This one you can see my downstroke is like droop. It's kind of a funny shape. It's not quite straight. So that goes back to practicing those basic strokes and using the guideline. So if I keep my eye on this angle line, you can see that one's a little bit better where it's more aligned with the angle line, where this one's a little bit wonky. Next is the letter E. This one we're starting halfway between the waistline and the baseline, and we're doing a small loop with light pressure, and then we come around and finish it kind of like we finished the letter C. So it's a small loop, and then it's basically like the letter C. And the loop of the E can be as small or as large as you want it to be. Either is fine, neither is incorrect. Next is the letter F. So this one again is going to have that stylized upstroke. We're going to go into an ascending loop, and then we're going to come back down into a descending loop, and then we're going to come into an upstroke again. So stylized upstroke, ascending loop to descending loop to upstroke. Next is the letter G. This one is going to be an O form. Something I forgot to mention in the beginning is between most strokes, you're lifting up your pen. So it's different than cursive where your pen is down on the paper the whole time. This is, we really are lifting up our pen between strokes. Descending loop and upstroke. So O form, descending loop, and upstroke. For the letter H, this is going to be similar to the B and the F, where we've got that stylized upstroke, an ascending loop, and then a compound curve that we're going to end at the waistline. So stylized upstroke, ascending loop, and compound curve. There's the letter H. Next is the letter I. So this one we're going to have just an underturn with a dot. Underturn and dot the I. Super easy. Everyone loves that one. Next is J. This is a descending loop with an upstroke, and then you dot it. Descending loop, upstroke, and dot it. And if it helps, you can draw these right over the angle line so you can get those angles correctly. Next is the letter K. This one, we're again going to have that stylized upstroke into an ascending loop. We have our reverse O form, but it's very mini. And then it's kind of like an underturn, but it's more angled. So we've got our stylized upstroke, our little mini O form, and then our underturn. L is going to be an ascending loop with an underturn combined into one stroke. So this kind of looks just like a large E, and you can have it start prior to the loop or have it just start at the loop. Both ways totally works. Next is M. This one's going to be a downstroke, an overturn, and a compound curve, but we are going to end it up here at the waistline. So downstroke, overturn, and compound curve. We've got the letter N, we've got a downstroke and a compound curve, downstroke, compound curve. Next is O. So I'm going to give you two variations on this. So this one's stylized, where we're starting almost at the 2 o'clock and we're adding a little loop. So that's fun because it's loopy. Or we could do just our regular O form and we add a comma dot. So that's also correct. Or regular O form, comma dot starts over here, and then we have a looped version. So none of these are incorrect or wrong, they're just kind of different stylistic choices, which is fun with lettering. Once you learn the basic strokes and you learn how they work together to make the letters, you can really start to experiment and create your own style based on rearranging, repositioning, changing the proportion of the strokes. For the letter P, you're going to have a long downstroke, a reverse O form, and a stylized upstroke. So long downstroke, reverse O form, and stylized upstroke. For Q, this is going to be that O form, a descending loop with an upstroke at the end. It's a descending loop, but it's facing the other direction, so it's just reflected, but it's still the same basic shape. So we've got an O form, a descending loop, and an upstroke. Next is the letter R. This one is considered an outlier letter because it has portions of it that are not a part of the basic strokes. So we're going to come up in a thin line, then we're going to start to add pressure, keep adding pressure, and go into an underturn. So it's really the loop and coming down that's the new part. So we're coming up, and this is new, and now we're in an underturn. That's the letter R. A variation of this would just be upstroke, past the waistline on both, and then this little jog there, that's the unique part of the letter that's not a basic stroke. Next we have the letter S. This one starts with a stylized upstroke, a small loop, a second loop, and up. So what's happening here, if we look at the cursive S, we're basically just stylizing the two upstrokes at the beginning of the end, and we're just adding loops here and here at the bottom. So we're coming up, a little loop, come down, a little loop, and bring it back up again. Next is the letter T. This one's going to be a downstroke with an underturn and what is called a crossbar. Crossbars or anything horizontal in lettering is a thin line, not thick. So downstroke and underturn and a crossbar. We're almost done. You're doing amazing. Next is the letter U. This one is going to be two underturns together. So underturn and underturn. V, we've got a little bit of an entry stroke here, and then it goes into an underturn with a comma dot. A variation would just be like this, but we're just adding the loop on that comma dot. Same thing with the W. We've got underturn, underturn into a loop and up, or we could do underturn, underturn, comma dot. And honestly, I've been leaning more towards the non-loop as of late, but as I'm drawing this one with the loop, I'm like, this is so fun. I want to do more loops now. So it's totally a stylistic choice, but it's very fun. For this X, what we're doing here is we're doing a compound curve, but we're cutting off the top and the bottom. So that's what this middle part is part of a compound curve, and then we're just doing an upstroke. A variation of this would be like this. So it doesn't matter which kind of way the thin line is curving, but it does need to just cross the X. Two more letters. We've got the letter Y. This one's going to be an underturn and a descending loop and an upstroke. So underturn, descending loop, and an upstroke. And Z is going to be kind of like an overturn with a little loop and kind of like a descending loop and then an upstroke. So it could very much be an outlier letter, but we're trying to really force it into the basic strokes. And this is a variation without the loop. So those are all of the lowercase letters. There's plenty of room for you to practice in here and to get familiar with how each of these letters are drawn.